and I'm excited to be here with all of you. I flew back. I was in France 4 days ago, and I flew back so that I can be awake and not doing the presentation at 3 a.m. in the morning. So I'm here in California, excited to be with all of you. So a few questions before we start. I'm curious so that I get a sense where you are at a little bit. So I'm curious if you know about the Enneagram. If you know the Enneagram well, if you could do that, a thumbs up, or if you know it somewhat, that, and if you don't know it, so that I just know where people are at in general. So I see, let's see, some thumbs up, some somewhat. Okay, and there is no requirement for, for this presentation, whether you know the Enneagram or you don't know it, you'll be able to follow along. Great. And I want to have a sense about Myers-Briggs a little bit, the same thing, and there is not a good or bad answer. Same thing if you know it well, if you know kind of somewhat or not at all, knowing where you're at. So I think some people know it, somewhat. Okay, same thing here. There is no requirement to know it or not. And I'm also curious about Myers-Briggs in particular. If you can raise your hand if you like using it, or if you think it has brought you something, if you can raise your hand if it's the case. Okay, so I see some people. And if you are, which sometimes happens, if you are kind of skeptical, wondering, I'm not sure about the Myers-Briggs, what does that do? And if it's really effective, because I've heard that sometimes. So if it is the case, you can raise your hands. And there is no, again, good or bad answers here. Okay, so I see, yeah, one person. Yeah, okay, got it. And the reason why I'm asking the question is because I've heard sometimes in the Enneagram community, sometimes about the Myers-Briggs being some skepticism. Not always, but sometimes it happens, hearing, the Enneagram help you free yourself from the box you are in, and Myers-Briggs or the T system can put you in a box. So in my experience, I have about 10 years of experience using both systems in combination to help leaders and professionals unlock their purpose in the world, in their careers, and step in their full leadership using both systems. And what I can tell you is that when used well and in the right timing in the process for the purpose they were each intended, combining both can be extremely powerful in helping people unlock their purpose in the world and also step into their leadership. So this is what I'm gonna talk about with you tonight. And so what I want to say is this presentation is really geared toward how to combine both in the specific context of helping you step more into your own purpose or helping others step more into their purpose. So you'll see, this is the way the presentation is gonna go in terms of illuminating the complementarity between the two systems. So I'm gonna share my screen here. And so tonight, what you're gonna learn, I'm gonna talk about the framework first. I'm gonna set the context around helping people discover their purpose and the framework I use for that to really set a good context. And then we'll dive into, when and how in this specific process, Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram best fit in and why, and how to best use each for maximized impact. So I'm curious to know a little bit why you decided to attend this presentation tonight. So if you can put in the chat just a few words, briefly, what drew you in tonight about the topic in particular? So I get a sense of where you're at with it. I see Donna always redefining purpose, curious to learn, going deeper with Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram. Okay, let me see if I can follow. Yeah, no, loving both, lots of corresponding profiling systems to understand human personality, for life purpose and guidance. Yeah, how to integrate both in the system. Okay. Correlation. Yeah, I see a lot of things about correlation between the two systems. Yeah, how some say people, the two systems don't work, how they do. Okay, great. Yeah, so it sounds like there is a lot of interest around that. Okay, fabulous. Great. I'm super excited to be with you tonight around that. And what I want to say, of course, is a lot of what I'm going to share tonight is based on my own experience in my office working with clients. It's a way I learn a lot is by experiencing and seeing and coming to my own conclusions. And of course, I'm doing this presentation with you to have a discussion together. Like I don't pretend having the truth, having it's the perspective that I've seen, and I want also to contribute more to the conversation and hearing about your own experience and what you think. Okay, and here what I like to know a little bit more, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a moment, is so if you can raise your hand if you use the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs in your work to help people. So if you can raise your hand if you use it as a practitioner, professional, and then if you don't, you halfway you can do that. That works too. Fabulous. And also raise your hand if you use it personally, and maybe sometime it might be both. If you use it more personally, and some of you may be doing both. Okay, great. Yes. So this is going to be useful for both, all the perspective here, whether you use it professionally or personally, for your own, how to step even more into your own purpose, and how to even, if you want to help others, do that as well. So a little bit about me, but I think Nancy already introduced me well, so I won't spend some time describing that too much. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you want. My website is in the way of being updated. So my website may not be a full reflection of what I've been doing for the past 5 years. So my LinkedIn is maybe a better reflection of that. In case and I would love to be connected with you on LinkedIn. You can just it's really easy. You can use your camera to use it, and you have the link to my LinkedIn profile. Okay, great. So now I'd like to know, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much are you living your purpose in your work, in your life? And it might just be your intuitive hit about it. What is your gut reaction in terms of how much you are living it, you are clear with it, you are expressing it. So if you can put that in the chat, on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you think you are at? Knowing there is not a good or bad answers about that. Okay, so 8, 9, 7, 5. So I see 7, 8, 10. Wow, that's great. Some 5s. Yeah, I see some 5s, some 7s. 0. Okay, thank you all for your honesty about that. Okay, great. And now I want to ask you why the reality out there, and it's what I see a lot with my working with the clients and in general in the world, that unfortunately there are not many people who are living their purpose, both in their work and in their life, especially in their work. I would say this is kind of the focus of the work I do. So I'm curious, what do you think? Of course, there are probably many reasons for that. We won't cover all of them tonight, but I'm curious, what is your thoughts about why so many people are not living their purpose in their work in particular? If you can put that in the chat, or you can also feel free to unmute yourself and tell me verbally if you want as well. Whatever you prefer. Why do you think? Yeah, so people need to earn a living. Yeah, definitely a part of that. The fear. I love Roland that it's a 0.6 we talks about fear. Great. Fear as well. Another 0.6 who talks about fear. Yeah, you are familiar with that. Definitely fear is a big for all of us. Transitions in life. Yes, stress on making a living. So all the connection about that. Not conscious, not fully aware, living unconsciously. Yeah, people don't know their purpose, where to start. Too many distractions. What they want to do, inner critic, society norm, parents' influence, yes. Yeah, so many reasons why that can stop us from fully living a purpose. Yeah, definitely, and there are a lot of different reasons. To illustrate a bit that and how I approach this with my clients and the work I do specifically, in terms of the reason that I see people facing, I'm going to share a little bit of my story, and then we'll go into more the reason why, and then how Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram fit into that. I grew up in the south of France on a farm. On my dad's side, people have been farmers from generation. And as a kid, as I can remember looking back now, of course, at the time I didn't realize that, it's just looking back, I was a very sensitive kid. I was sensitive, I had a lot of emotional empathy that was coming to me naturally about other people. I was often daydreaming, like walking in the fields on my dad's farm and just daydreaming and being in my thinking, imagining things, and having some kind of intuitive intelligence as well, and relational intelligence. And in my family, on my dad's side, people were farmers from generation to generation, so had more practical type of intelligence and how to make a living, what's really to be practical. On my mom's side, it was more intellectual and rational intelligence. Teachers, in Paris, and the focus was a lot about reading books and being smart, book smart in some ways. And at school in France, the focus, and still is, but the focus is a lot on, I would say, rational intelligence, knowledge. It's a lot about the head, and a lot about knowing things, a lot of things what is valued in France. It's not the only thing. There are a lot of different variations about that. But in school, there is a lot of value about being intelligent is knowing things and knowing the history and having critical thinking and using a lot your mind and in that way. So this is a lot what is valued. So as a result, for me as a kid, I didn't know better, and there was nothing in my life, in my family and at school or elsewhere in my community that was really reflecting who I was and what my intelligence was about. So as a way to fit in and to belong and to be loved and accepted unconsciously, of course, I'd follow what was required of me in school and to be successful. So I fold myself into that mold and use a lot of my rational mind to be a good student. And I was actually quite successful, I was good in school. And so I followed that path in high school, and then graduate, like university, and then ultimately as choosing my careers, following that same kind of path. And I ended up studying being in information science and moving to Montreal, Canada, and then to the US, working for Yahoo in the US in user experience research. And using mainly, I mean, not only, I was also using my emotional intelligence, but, you know, using a lot of my rational type of intelligence. And, you know, on paper, I was pretty successful. You would look at my resume, it was like, wow, all the things you have achieved and all the things that was really present for me, probably because I'm a type 4. I'm, you know, a 0.4, but I have a strong 3 wings. So about achieving success and all of that. So that was really present. However, inside, I was not, it was a different story. Especially after a while, the fact of keeping extending and trying to fit into that mold that wasn't really who I was, I started, you know, doubting myself, wondering, am I good enough? Am I actually smart? Is there something wrong with me? Because when you keep trying to extend into somebody you are not, you start having doubt about yourself. So this was growing and growing and expanding. To a point, I remember when I was working at Yahoo, I was in my cube at Yahoo, and one day I was so miserable, I wanted to cry. And one of my coworkers came to me and asked me, "What's going on today? You look so sad." And I couldn't tell him the truth that I was really, I hated my job and I didn't want to be here. Because the gap between who I was and what I was doing starting to become so big that it was starting to be unbearable for me. And on that specific journey, there had been a couple of turning points. And one of them was when I was in Montreal, Canada. I always loved self-discovery, learning more by myself. And I worked with a career counselor. And she gave me a lot of different assessments to take. And one of them was Myers-Briggs. That was the first time I was hearing about it. And I took it. And I remember reading the description of what I find out. And it was like for the first time in my life, I was reflected back who I was really. I was reading words like, you know, quality of depth, depth in empathy, ability to vision and use your intuition, you know, relational, emotional intelligence, things like that. I was reading about the type that I find out. And for the first time in my life, I realized, oh, it's okay. It's why maybe I'm not the same as some of my coworkers who have other strengths that I have, and I keep striving to be like them, but I'm not really built like that. I'm not built to be, some people are very, you know, pragmatic and practical and assertive, and I have other qualities that are as good as the other ones. And for the first time, I realized who I was. And it was the day I started a journey back to myself, to really discovering who I was really, instead of what society told me to do or what I've took on from outside perspective to become who I was. And so as a result, I started this journey, and then I realized that so many people in the world have similar issues, you know, and I decided to start my own business 10 years ago to help leaders or professionals who have been often very successful, but there is a gap between what they are doing and who they are, that often either they don't see, but they want to do work that is really purposeful. They want to live their purpose in the world or step into their higher level of leadership. And I help them do them in a way that is true to themselves, that they can bring, you know, their unique gift to the world. Of course, you know, you might say as a 0.4, that not surprising that I do that, but it's aligning back with my purpose and my gift. So as in that journey, what I realized is that we were born with a blueprint of who we are, with some innate qualities about who we are and innate talents that we don't necessarily change. Of course, we evolve, we grow, and we develop things. But the core of who we are, for me, like my emotional intelligence is always gonna be a strength. I can develop my head, I can develop my body, but where I'm gonna lead with is always that. And if I don't listen to that, I become somebody that I'm not. And it's a bit like in nature, you have, like an acorn, and in the acorn is contained the seeds of um, I'm losing the word, of an oak tree. And an acorn is not going to become a pine tree. That's not possible. But us as human beings, we do that. We are an acorn and we try to become a pine tree, either because we don't know it or because of the conditioning of what we think we should become. And that's one of the reasons that so many people are not living their purpose. Of course, that's not the only reason, but this is one of the reasons I focus on, because this is part of my purpose, to help people do that. And so 2 reasons why we are not living the purpose, at least the 2 reasons I focus on in my work. As you wrote down, there are a lot of different reasons that I also cover in my work, but this one are the one that I find, that are the most gifted at helping people with, and I see a lot with my clients. So the first one, as I described, is one when we try to become who we are not. So it's why I call we are operating from a conditioned overprint. Instead of operating from a true blueprint, we operate from what is conditioned, and it's overprint because it's hiding our true blueprint and true essence. So it's like being an oak tree and trying to become a pine tree and being blind to it. So for example, a client who is naturally good with his hands is just good with using his hand to build stuff. And because of conditioning from society, of course, because of saying what's making a living looks like, going into a career that is way more rational and abstract and using his mind, and after a while being unfulfilled because he's not using his natural gift, which is gifting with building stuff with his hands, for example. The second reason that I focus on as well in terms of helping people live their purpose is, imagine you're already living, you are an oak tree, for example, or you are already being the oak tree, you are living part of your purpose. However, you get stuck into self-defeating patterns that's stopping you from being the amazing tree you are meant to be. So you cannot really do that. And this is stopping you from fully living your purpose. So for example, a client who is an architect, very successful, and has a vision of writing books and working internationally and teaching classes and very gifted. But because he's stuck into patterns of distraction, patterns of getting attracted by the shiny object and having a hard time focusing, then as a result, he's not fully living his purpose, and many more like that. So I see Ada as your hand raised. Do you have a question, Ada?
Yeah. Would you mind if I ask you a question about your story? You were saying that how you were raised, you had like on one part of your family, it was there were farmers, so you're raised in nature and the farm, so it was you're close to the land, you had that, and then on the other side it was more intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
So you had like either option, and then on the one side, so I'm wondering, did you enjoy numbers? Like, how did you end up in IT? I feel like that's kind of like skip, I'm kind of wondering, given the background, what made you choose IT in technical field? Did you like it? Were you, at one point, were you strong at it, math, or did you?
I was good in math, so I was good in math. And what I need to say in IT, I was not doing the technical aspect of IT. So I was doing user experience, which is a lot actually the human part of IT. So I was already doing a bit what I like. And
Okay.
it was more using information science, so how to organize information, how to make the website externally easy to use for people. So I didn't have to have knowledge in tech, engineers and these kind of things. So it was more that aspect of tech.
Okay, it wasn't like you got a degree in information technology or
No, I didn't. Information science is kind of the soft side, the soft side of tech, of tech, if you will.
Okay, so you kind of wanted to be around that, but you knew that you can get in the area where you could use your human resources and other organizational skills is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I used a lot of my, still rational skill, but I was still using some of my human and emotional thing, but a lot of, how to organize information and these kind of things. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the question. Okay. So yeah, to go back to that. So some of the two reasons I see people not fully living the purpose, at least the one that I'm using in my work. So now I have a few questions for you. So I'm curious, where are you not living your purpose? Because we are all on a journey of how can we, and it can be in your work, but also in your life, because for me, the purpose is not just in your work. It doesn't necessarily mean making a living at least it can be making a living from it. It doesn't have necessarily to be that. It can be on all kind of ways. So, and 3 specific questions that you'll have the chance to discuss in a breakout room with a partner. So, and I'll put the question in the chat so you can easily follow. The first one is, where are you operating from your condition overprint instead of your true gift? So, in other words, where are you maybe doing something in your work, in your life, and you feel like it's not really who you are, it's not fully aligned with what you are good at the core. And it can be marginal, it can be important, it can be marginal. And if you don't know, it can be a feeling. Sometimes you may not know exactly, but you may feel, when I keep doing these things, I get exhausted at the end of the day. I get not fulfilled. So this might be a sign that there are areas where you are stretching. Of course, it's good to stretch outside, but where you are really not really using your gift, but being in different ways. So the first question. The second question is, what self-defeating pattern are you stuck into? Or in other words, what is your growth edge? Are you, and we all have them, until the end of our life, we are still always have stuff that we're working on, even when we have done a lot of work on ourselves. So why now? What is your growth edge? Is that how to set boundaries? You have a hard time maybe setting boundaries or saying no, or you are getting distracted. You have a hard time focusing. What is the kind of some of the pattern that you see is keeping you stuck? Or if you are not clear about what it is, what is your growth edge? Where do you want to expand? And finally, the third question, what would that look like or feel like if you were free from these roadblocks, these 2 roadblocks? How would you feel? So you're going to have, in a breakout room with somebody else, you're going to have 3 minutes each to share. Of course, 3 minutes, I'm aware 3 minutes, it's short. So you won't share everything you need, but start with what is top of mind to you? And what is there for you to share? And if you don't have time to cover the third question, that's fine too. So no pressure here, just what is present that you want to share about that with the other person. And you'll have each 3 minutes to share, while the first person is sharing, the other person just listen, give space, hold a compassionate witnessing space where you hold compassion and let the person really express what is there.
Isabelle, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Nancy. Nancy? Are you here? Oh, I cannot hear you now. So just before, as Nancy is looking at, so you have, oh, go ahead.
The breakouts are set.
Oh, awesome.
And my only question is, Ada is here twice. Is there two Adas or one Ada? I put you in the same room. Ada, or is there two of you? Are you signed in twice?
Put it in the same room.
Okay.
I'll be sorting it out in some time in the future. Someone will show me how, but put me in the same room.
Okay. And then Tracy, I didn't put you in a room. I think she already dropped out. All right. So 8 minutes, is that, I'm sorry, my internet's so shoddy.
No, 6 minutes, so 3 minutes.
6 minutes? Okay.
Are we able to tell them when to switch? Nancy, do you think?
Yes, I will be able to. I'm sorry. I had it all set. And of course it dropped me out and then.
No, and so one of the things at the end, so we'll have 6 minutes total. So we can use the 60 seconds, at the end when there is it's okay. No, we don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 minutes, 3 minutes each.
All right, just give me one minute and I will have it.
Any questions for anybody about, is that clear or is there any question before you go in the breakout room? Okay.
All right, and there'll be one room with 3 people in it. So thank you for working together. One room with 3 people. All right, 6 minutes. And go have fun.
Thank you, Nancy.
Justin, do you want to be in a room?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Either way, I am living my purpose.
Me too, Justin.
I don't know. I do what I want when I want, and I've just been really enjoying everything.
That's fabulous.
When you're retired, it's like every day Saturday, but you don't have to do the laundry or the chores.
I like it. That sounds fabulous. Sounds great.
Oh, I'm there with you. I'm just gonna leave it like it is. Those people.
Okay.
Oh, Ada's asking for help. Let me hop in with her.
Did you want to pause the recording right now?
Good question. Yeah, I can. Probably it's best.
All right, here they're back. Here they're back. Yay. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody. So I would love to hear either in the chat or if you want to share verbally, what is one insight or one thing that came up for you that you like to share either in the chat or verbally. About any of the questions. I see Beth. Yeah, Beth is raising a hand. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Isabelle. Okay, so I said I would be much more relaxed when I'm doing my Enneagram Insight sessions with clients and not be so worried about whether I know enough. And my partner said he'd be more playful.
Okay, so one about more playfulness and you about maybe being more relaxed. Is that what you said? Okay.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. Yes, you're all getting stuck in old belief patterns. Yeah, I'm curious what kind of old belief patterns you're stuck into in particular. So yeah, feel free to keep sharing in the chat about that. We're gonna
I think it's just this is Roland. I made that comment about old belief patterns. It's just the negative, like if I get caught in my inner critic,
mhm,
and if I get caught, I'm having like a rough time, I think I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, why did I do this? Aren't I stupid kind of thing?
mhm,
And it's very easy to get caught in that.
mhm,
What I know when I'm on the right path is that I ask myself, is there anything else I'd rather be doing? And it's no. I'd like to be more coaching and teaching. I hate marketing. Maybe I need to learn to love marketing. But it's sort of this self-belief, I'm not worth it. I don't have value. And of course, when you put that energy out there, you don't get a really good response back. So but I know when I'm doing things, it just feels like right. It feels like,
yeah.
not saying it's always easy, but there's a sense of joy, sense of purpose, sense of meaning. There's a sense of flow. I want more of that.
Yes, I love it. So what I'm hearing is sound like what you are doing is in alignment with your gift and your purpose. It's more when you get the inner critic about, oh, maybe I'm not enough, I'm not doing that is just messing things up.
Yeah.
Got it. And I see Tiffany, my growing edge is my concern for other people. Happiness, yeah, about being probably 0.9 is consistent with that. And Anton, balancing alone time and time for others. Great, Bruce. Yes, you have a
Yes, I'm a 9, so it'd be easier for me to speak than to try to write it in there.
Okay, yes.
I'm retired now, and my work life was and I was trained to be serious. And I'm looking forward to getting to have more fun in my life and be playful and do some traveling. And perhaps settling in Portugal was my next place.
I like that. Yeah, going into the playfulness instead of the seriousness and moving from that to the playfulness. Fabulous. Anton, and then we're gonna move on after that. But I want to hear you, Anton. What came up for you?
Yeah, just quickly, I was going to say, and I had posted in chat, like about the balancing alone time with or for others. It's like, and I think this is mainly because of my Enneagram type. It's not so much type 5. I mean, my Myers-Briggs type, not so much type 5, because they're more withdrawn anyway. So this is part of it. But like, as much as I do actually love connecting with people or interacting with people, I also feel like I have to have time to reflect or process things. And like, so it's balancing both sides of those. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear that, the tension between both. And I'm wondering if maybe being at 0.5, you naturally you want maybe more. Do you want more alone? It's easy to be in the alone time and showing your, like you have also.
It can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mixture. For me, where I don't where I don't fully feel like I relate to the 5, I do to a great degree, but is how much I love the connection with people. And that's maybe just as, if not more important to me as my alone time, but alone time also is. So it's kind of between two worlds in a way.
Between two, the dancing between the two. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, fabulous. And we're gonna continue, but at the end, if people want to share, you can share as well at the end of the presentation. So let me I'm just gonna continue sharing my screen. So we actually, to help us uncover and transform this, or to help other people, we need effective maps and tools to do that. And so that we can really be in the magnificent tree that we are meant to be and live our full purpose and potential. So I'm curious, So we're gonna go back here, a reminder about the thing that we are working on here. You know, the first part is moving from operating from a condition overprint to operating from a true blueprint, like being, if I am an oak tree, ensure that I'm living from being an oak tree. And then at the top, moving away from a self-defeating pattern and freeing yourself from that. So what do you think, where do you think Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram may come into play here to help us do that? So any ideas or thoughts where they might help us with this? So you can either put in the chat, or you can also you know, share out loud if you prefer as well. So I see Roland presence, self-awareness. So what to clarify maybe my question, I'm realizing my question was not clear, is that what are the tools that help us? You know, there is one, we need to help people move from operating from the condition overprint to that blueprint. Shall we use the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs for that, or maybe both? And where do we use Myers-Briggs? Why do we use the Enneagram in this specific framework to help us transform that?
I really don't remember. I did Myers-Briggs a number of years ago, so I don't feel like I know the Enneagram way more than I knew Myers-Briggs.
Okay.
Although I remember Myers-Briggs was very helpful. So I'm guessing you could use both. Maybe I'm curious to learn from you, Isabelle, about which might work better in what situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to tell you based on my own, so this is based on my own experience, and it doesn't mean there are other ways to do it. And we can definitely use both in both contexts. But what I find, and I'm going to explain to you how and why, is I find the Myers-Briggs, especially the way I use it in a way different than a lot of people, you will see. But I find it tends to be very effective about ensuring we find our true self blueprint and we operate from that place. The Enneagram can help us do that as well, because the Enneagram is going to point, you know, how do you function and your motivation and things. But in my experience, I find, you know, I like using the Myers-Briggs expanded that I use in that way. And then the Enneagram I find is particularly good at helping identify very precisely what are the self-defeating patterns you get stuck into. And then giving you a map to actually free yourself from a self-limiting pattern. And then using other tools like shadow work to help us actually transform that. So this is what I'm gonna illustrate to you, knowing there is other ways, not the only answers to it, but this is kind of the way that I find in my experience is really works pretty well. So let's start with the first part with the Myers-Briggs and covering a true self blueprint. So, and I don't know, so in case people are not familiar with the Enneagram, I'm not gonna, the Myers-Briggs, sorry, I'm not gonna go into a lot of depths about that because I'm actually gonna move away from this, I'm gonna tell you. But in case you are not familiar with the Myers-Briggs, just a quick reminder, there are 16 types with the 4 letters. You probably have heard about that. Often 4 dimensions of the type, extraversion, introversion, sensing and treating, this different aspect to it. And we take the MBTI, which is an instrument, to the official instrument to help you discover what is your preferred type, you know, which preference you have for which type. So this is often the way it's used. And it's actually not the way I use it. So I'm going to explain to you why. But what I find out is with the MBTI, the assessment, in 40% of the case, there are mistyping happening. And it's why actually I don't use it with my clients. The theory behind it with the 16 type is I find very powerful, but the assessment, it's a case often with assessment, they have their own limitation. It's the same with Enneagram. And so the problem is that if we have a lot of mistyping going on and we are trying to find out what is our true blueprint and the assessment or the way we do it doesn't lead to that, we're going to be in trouble. And also there is a lot of oversimplification often when we use only the 4 letters and the extroversion, introversion, sensing and treating. There will be way more nuance and depth to that often we miss when we do the Myers-Briggs in that way. So the way I was trained to do it and I use with my client that is way more effective is this way. So I was trained with a woman called Linda Behrens, who use the Myers-Briggs, but has expanded with complementary models that make it more robust and more reliable. So you see here the type, what she called the type patterns, actually the 16 types. So you have your 16 types with the 4 letters, they are there, but we combine 3 other models, 3 other lenses, if you will, that we kind of triangulate to ensure that we nail the right type. So I explained to you, so we're gonna focus mainly today on the interaction style and essential motivators because they are the one I use with my client. And the beauty of that, when you combine the essential motivators, you figure out what is my main essential motivators, what is my main interaction style, and you combine them together, you land into your type, your Myers-Briggs type. And the fact of triangulating that, you can ensure you got the right information and that limit a lot the mistyping going on. And through the process, you discover very valuable information about how you function. What are your core needs and values with the essential motivators, how you influence others with the interaction styles. So you'll see, I'm gonna give you examples. This is very powerful. Unfortunately, it's not as used. I wish it was, because often the way Myers-Briggs is used, I think, is a bit limiting and sometimes a bit stereotyping as well. It can be. And also in this process, I don't use any assessment. I use a self-discovery process so that people can really get empowered to discover themselves through the process and try on which pattern, which style fit them the best. The same way that I do with the Enneagram, I use typing interview as well for the same reason. So let's start with the essential motivator. So just a caveat, I won't have the chance. I wish I could talk about it for hours, but because we are limited in time, I'll give you a flavor of it, but I won't be able to go into all the depths of the system. There is a lot of depth to them. So, but hopefully I give you the motivation and the interest to dive deeper into it, because this is very powerful. So the 4 essential motivators, most of you who have heard about the temperaments by David Kersey, potentially this is where it's come from. It's just an expanded version of it, but this is coming from that specific theory. And so you have 4 different essential motivators, and we all have one that is our main one, where it's a home in us. And what I find extremely powerful is that about the essential motivators, it's a pattern. Meaning it's not individual characteristic, it's actually a pattern of things like a system fitting together with core needs, values, talents, and behaviors. And everything goes together when the value, the talents, and behaviors of your essential motivators are an extension of your core needs. So it's like a tree in nature. If you look at a pine tree, you know, every pine tree is different. However, when you see a pine tree, you know it's a pine tree. Why do you know it's a pine tree? Because there is a set of characters that go together. So it's kind of the same thing about the essential motivator pattern. It's why it's so powerful. And there is a lot of depths. Again, it's just an example of the depths of it. For each of the essential motivators, you have this expression of it. And I'm going to share with you a simplified. So this is just a simplified, very simplified version of it, so that you get it at a glimpse. The 4 different essential motivators and some of the characteristics. And I invite you right now, because to focus, look at the core needs first. You know, compare the core needs of the 4 different types. So you see and see which one seems to resonate the more for you. We all have all the core needs in us because we are human. However, we tend to have one that is dominant, meaning if it's your essential motivators and this core need is not fulfilled, you're gonna experience a lot of stress. For example, if you lead with improviser, there is a need for a freedom to act now. So improviser need to have the freedom to act on the impulses, or to act when they see a solution to a problem. They like to be able to act on it and have the freedom to do so, to make an impact. Making an impact can be solving a problem, making someone happy, seeing on the face of someone, oh, the person is happy now. So having an impact. And if an improviser on a regular basis, they are not able to do that because of being micromanaged, for example, or having too many rules and regulations, it's going to be extremely stressful for them, to a point where they can start feeling depressed and even burnout. And this is the same for all the essential motivators, that we all have, that the core needs are essential. It's like the air and water that you need to live well. And often they are unconscious, so you may get a feel, oh, maybe this one speaks more to me. But in general, with my client, we need more time, because it can be the core needs are a little bit unconscious. We don't always realize that this is the core driver driving a lot of our behaviors. So you may or may not be clear right away about it, and that's okay. But you can start getting a feel and see which one, and feel free, to put, if you want to put in the chat, which ones tend to resonate more with you. And while you do that, I'm going to share with you the example of a client. So I see Jen putting catalyst. So I'll let you put that in the chat. Feel free to share a little bit what seems to resonate most with you in this. And I'm going to share with you how I use it with clients with a specific case studies that's going to really illuminate the power of this system. So I had a client come to me. I'm going to call her Julia. I'm going to keep it's not an actual name, but to keep a confidentiality of privacy. She came to me. She was in her early 30s, a very successful architect living in San Francisco. And she was not fulfilled anymore in her work. She was stressed at work. She was wondering, I don't know if I want to stay in architecture. I don't know if it's for me anymore. She wanted help with clarifying a vision for her work and a purpose, finding work that is really aligned with a purpose. And she was wondering if it was architecture or something else. So we use, like with all of my clients, we use this model. I use other things before we get into that, but we used the model because I find it's very helpful to understand what is your true self blueprint, so that you can ensure you have work that is in alignment with that. And in her case, we find out that she was leading with a theorist. So the theorist essential motivator. And people will lead with theorists. Often there is a lot of emphasis on concept and ideas, knowledge and competence, but knowledge and competence that is more theoretical. Improviser, for example, focus on knowledge and competence, but more practical, more applied. Theorist is really about the concept, the theories, the truths in a more abstract way. And so we find out that she was more leading with theorist. And one of the reasons she was stressed is that she was asked as work to operate more from the improviser place. That is not really who she is. So she was asked, improvisers tend to have more a tactical type of intelligence, more like action-driven, solving problems. They can also have concept and ideas, but for them it's about, okay, what we're gonna do with it, how we're gonna apply it. And because she was asked to do more of that, this is a place where she was experiencing stress as a result, because she couldn't really express who she was. Yeah, and I see in the chat a lot of catalyst and theorist, stabilizer. Yes, I think there is a lot of different aspects. Okay, so now and the other model that I use is called interaction style, to combine with the essential motivators. And again, it's a set of characteristics where you have like a name, core belief, talents. I mean, it's all combined together. This is why this is so powerful. And to give you, just to give you an example of them, again, coming from the work of Linda Behrens, it's just to explain to you the complexity of the system, so you get a feel for it. And then I'm gonna show you a simplified version again, so that you can have a quick glance, and I'm gonna give you a little time to have a look at the 4 different interaction styles, and feel free also to put in the chat if there is one of them that tend to stand out or resonate more for you when you read the words. And so in the case of, again, I'm gonna go with Julia to give you an examples. We find out that she was leading with the get things going interaction style. So people with get things going are people who like involving other people. They like being involved. They like involving people. They like getting an embrace result. And they love collaboration. They thrive on collaboration. If they don't have collaboration, it's like they die inside. This is what happens. And they are not really good at facilitating, at collaborating. They love teamwork and, brainstorming, and they often need, it doesn't mean they may need time by themselves as well, like all human beings, but they need to have that to thrive. And they are not really good at it because it's part of their gifts. Like every interaction style had a different gift. And for her, we realized that this is what she needed at work to be successful, to be happy. And then the beauty of it, when we combine the get things going interaction style with the essential motivator theorist, we combine them together and we find the best fit type, Myers-Briggs type, that come with it. And you don't need to know exactly what that means right now, but we find out she was ENTP, which in ENTP is, Linda Behrens called them explorer inventor. So there are people who need inventing, finding new ways of conceptualizing problems, like innovation, like long-range vision about innovating, and futuristic and learner, all these kind of things. That was really a characteristics when you combine the two together. And there are people that purpose and gift is about innovating in the world, and innovating not on a practical level, but innovating in like the vision and the far range vision. They are the innovator of the world. And so finding that for her, she understood why she was stressed at work, because she was in work where she couldn't do that. It was more about the practical problem solving day to day, when she wanted to conceptualize problem with other people and discussing them to find solution for the future. And so as a result, she kind of we help her clarify a next career where she could actually be part of a team of designers where they were innovating for the future and thinking what we can create together. So that was, one of the reasons. And we won't have necessarily come to that with this clarity about that specific aspect with using only the Enneagram. So it's why I like using that for that, because it's very precise in terms of these aspects. Yeah, and I see people say, remind me of the DISC theory. Yes, there is some overlap. I know Linda Berenson makes some overlap between the DISC theory and the interaction style that you can actually combine. You can combine them together. So that makes sense. Okay. Great. So about the Myers-Briggs and the way I use it, which is more expanding, it's why I use it for this, to help you discover your true blueprint, because I find it extremely powerful and nuanced in the way, again, I use it. If I were to use it the way it's often used, it's why sometimes I think there is skepticism about the Myers-Briggs because of the reason I mentioned. I'm curious, is that clear so far? Any questions before we're gonna move into the Enneagram? Any burning clarification question or any question for now?
Jen has a question. Go ahead,
Oh.
Jen.
Yeah, great, because I don't see.
Thank you so much. So just to be clear, you walk through all of this with your client and sort of have them self-discover their Myers-Briggs type, walking through the 4 different categories. I don't know what you call them. But
Yes. Yeah, I walk through them through self-discovery process.
Yeah.
Through videos and recording.
Okay.
So that they can self-discover. I also, before I do that with them, I explore with them their values. I have exercises to explore with them their values and their strengths. So they already start having a knowledge about themselves before we come to these models, because this model at first, sometimes you can mistype yourself, but because we did all the exercise before, it can confirm. And help them self-discover. And I'm here also to be a guide. If I see some inconsistency between what we find out before and what they are seeing themselves as, I help them through inquiry and question, because sometimes I have clients who don't see themselves. Sometimes it's hard to see yourself.
Yeah.
You think you're this,
very
but
clearly.
actually, so I support the video. There is a back and forth to help them really uncover who they are. But in this process itself is so powerful, because you let go all the conditioning about the layers of conditioning about who you think you were and who you actually are. So just in the process of self-discovery, you do this beautiful process that often we lose when we use an assessment alone.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, great. So I'm going to continue with the other piece about the Enneagram. I want to check, Nancy, about the timing, because I have about Nancy.
Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah,
Keep going. I think people want to hear.
10
Keep
more
going.
minutes. Okay, good. Are you good? And yeah, feel free. Let's do maybe a few stretching, because I know there is a lot of content we are covering. So let's move our body. Feel free to stand up if you want. And let's do some moving the body, stretching. If you want to shake, shake your arms, shake your legs. And you can do also some tapping like that. It's really help. Sometimes too, I don't know if you have done that before, you can tap on your head, on your arms. It just helps energize the body when we feel not as energized. Feel free. By the way, sometimes when you feel you don't have energy anymore, just do that for 30 seconds or 1 minute. It's going to help you on your chest, on your back, your legs, just some tapping. Okay, great. Okay, so let's, we're gonna now look at where the Enneagram fits into this. So I'm gonna share my screen again. So then I use the Enneagram to help us free yourself from a self-defeating pattern. And so I'm going to continue with the case study of Julia so that you can really see in the arc of one person how both systems support the evolution of the person in this context. So Julia, after we did this initial work, several years later, she came back to me because she needed more help. And what was going on, there were two different things. First of all, she had a bigger vision that we have clarified before that she wanted support to make happen. A bigger vision was to create with her husband, who was also an architect, like an international agency or community with different designers, and to design different things around the world and have a community of designers. As I told you, because of interaction style, she liked community and she liked being in teams, you know, so it was really consistent with that. And also she came back to me because she said, I'm really stressed at work. She was putting a lot of she had very high standards and putting a lot of pressure on herself in a work context and feeling very stressed at different levels, and she needed support with that. So we ended up working with the Enneagram because I got the sense that that would be something that could really help her, especially uncovering what were the self-defeating patterns that may be in the way for the next level of evolution. And so what I do often with clients, when they don't know the Enneagram type, I do a typing interview with them that is really thorough to help them discover what is the Enneagram point they lead with. And so we did that with her, and we find out that she was leading at point 3. And in particular, for those of you who know the subtype self-preservation 3, because self-preservation 3 put a lot of pressure on themselves, a very high standard, and sometimes they can look like type 1. But she was really a type 3. And so we did that. And for those of you, just a reminder for people here who are a bit less familiar, not fully familiar yet with the point 3 and the Enneagram, just a quick overview. So point 3, sometimes we call them the performer, the achiever. They are very goal-oriented. They achieve a lot. They are about producing results, being efficient, competent, and inspires others to drive for results. Some of the gift that they bring to the world. And in terms of the growth path or some of the self-defeating pattern that they need to transform, they can overdo. They are a lot in the doing. So they can be overdoing and pushing themselves and other people too hard without really realizing it, and not being always in touch with their emotions. And so in her case, we find out specifically with my client, I help them discover what are their disowned parts. So what are the parts that are in the shadow? When I say in the shadow, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just there is a part of us we have a hard time accessing because we have disowned it. Sometimes it can be joy. You can have joy in the shadow. Sometimes, when people think about shadow work, they imagine it's bad. And no, it's just not bad. Sometimes you can have joy you can have ease that is in the shadow. So you have a hard time accessing ease and you are working too hard all the time. So in her case, and at each Enneagram point, there are disowned parts that are sabotaging the type. So in the case of type 3, and in a case in particular, we clarify these 4 disowned parts. There were more, but some 4 big ones. And one of them was stillness. So you can see it's kind of the opposite, because type 3 are so much into doing, they are very good at doing. But the opposite of it is being, and being still, doing nothing. And when I told her stillness, she was like, oh, I could tell she had a reaction. And this means that this is in the shadow. This is something like, oh, stillness. She was afraid of it, you know. For type 3, often there is something about being still. What do you mean? Doing nothing? And so stillness within the shadow. Failure, so often for type 3, like failure is a big one, is often in the shadow. We don't want to touch it. Playful self, goalless, not having a goal. So for type 3, not having a goal, you're just gonna do something because it's fun, like a type 7 would do, but not because you have a goal to achieve something. So for her, this was also in the shadow. And the feeling self, so the part that can feel emotions, because often for point 3, you know, emotions tend to be think in the way of doing, or being messy and not keeping the image of success. If I show emotions, it's not going to be helpful. So in her case, we clarified that this part were in the shadow, which as a result, she was unbalanced. When you have part of yourself in the shadow, then you are overdoing the other ones and you have a hard time being in balance. So what I did with her, like what I do with all of my clients, I was trained doing a specific shadow work with each of these parts that helps own this part more. They come back online. They mature so that you can access them with the other part. And so as a result, slowly start shifting. It's not like suddenly it's going to shift everything, but you start becoming more comfortable being still as a type 3, you know, slowly you start seeing shifts. So for her, the way that came along, she's starting being more comfortable also being authentic about what's going on. For type 3, it's a big path of evolution, being in the false image to being authentic. So even at some point sharing with a manager, when she was putting a lot of pressure on herself. She's starting sharing that with others. And the stress that she was experiencing and all of that, to the point where a manager starting supporting her and even told her one day, okay, tomorrow you need to take a day off. You have worked enough. And starting being slowly, like one step at a time, being a little bit more vulnerable, and as a result, getting support from others. And also being more in touch with her emotions. I remember a session where she came and she was crying, you know, like all the emotion that a type 3 may have pushed aside to do suddenly came into, you know, because type 3 can be, I've heard people say sometimes type 3 are very emotional, but they hide it very well. But when they do the work to transform, like the emotional, the flow of emotion sometimes can come out. We can be disorienting for a type 3 at first, but it's actually a good thing because they are breaking that idea of the false image and letting the authenticity and humanity come out. So this is what happened for her. And as a result, being more playful, putting less pressure on herself, being more vulnerable in her relationships, and then having a easier time reaching a vision for a career in her life as a result of this work. And I love this work so much because for all the points, there is a way where we can, with this process, it's like being less tight in the contraction of a type, but expanding into new ways of being, still keeping the gift of your main point, but you are able to navigate and navigate between the different points with more, more flexibility. And it's just a beautiful process. And so in case I won't have time to go through the nine point around the gross edge and the discern parts. If you want, I have a document where I have listed all the different gross edge and path of evolution for all the type. Some of you may already know that because you are really expert at the Enneagram, but if some of you are interested, you can put your email in the chat. You can send it to me privately if you don't want others to see it, and I'll email you the document. So if you want me to send you the document about the 9 type and the gross their gift and also what is their growth path, feel free to put your email in the chat or privately to me. Wait, I'm gonna check the chat. I'm realizing I haven't checked the chat. Awesome, yes, thank you. And I see a question from Ida. How long or over how many sessions is a testing discovery process? Do you mean for the Enneagram in particular? I'm guessing this is probably what you mean.
You said that when someone asked, you were saying that you go through the process, you walk them through the client through self-discovery and all that, and they have the richer experience in just doing the straight testing. So I was asking, how long is that, whether, the testing / discovery altogether, how long or over how many sessions, usually to do that?
Got it. So I think you are talking more about the Myers-Briggs part of the process of the discovery.
Well, I do. Does one have to do both to get more of like a total integrated picture, or is the Myers-Briggs enough alone?
Yes, I do them, but it's too much to do them at once, because it would be too much for someone to discover, the essential. So I don't do them together. When I do, and I adapt them depending on what people needs, and where they are at, and I get a sense what they need. But in general, when I do the Myers-Briggs type process that I do at the beginning, this takes, I think it varies. It's about 3 sessions, plus they have homework with recording and things to check. So it's about 3 sessions, plus some build up to that. So I have extra session at the beginning to help them prepare for that level of self-discovery, but it's about, I would say 2 or 3 sessions. And then for the Enneagram, when I do typing interview, it's 2 sessions. And in between there is homework. So self-observation practices. So it's kind of on average what it is, but it can evolve with clients. Sometimes we need to clarify things, but it's kind of on average what it is.
Okay. And I imagine like one might take time in between to process everything as well. Like,
yes, definitely. And as I said, I don't do the 2 together. It would be too much. Like it varied between client, but in general, like with this client, when I help them discover what their purpose is, often I don't use the Enneagram, except some exception. I use the Myers-Briggs process with other process with helping them clarify their life purpose. I have all the tools that I use. So we do that in a first. And then the Enneagram is more later on when they have clarified their purpose and their vision, and there is some self-limiting pattern coming in the way, and I'm getting an intuition like, oh, there is something Enneagram related that is showing up. And when I sense that the person is ready, and it won't be too confusing to add it. So it's really like, but I don't necessarily, I wouldn't do them together. It would be confusing, disorienting for people. Does that help? Okay, so let me see here. We are arriving at the end. So I'm curious to hear what are one or two takeaways from this.
yes, thank you. That helps. I was away from the phone when you were asking me.
Okay, no worries. I'm glad that helps. Great. So I want to hear, either in the chat or you feel free to share with me verbally, maybe one or two takeaways from this session before we go into kind of wrapping up. And I'm gonna, oh, no, it's not what I wanted to do. How do I? Oh, stop. That's what I wanted. Stop sharing the screen.
Any takeaways, you guys?
Which has helped
That's
for me to learn how you use the Myers-Briggs within this and combine it with the Enneagram. I believe the Enneagram is a great tool, but it left by itself, it's not very helpful. So I'm always interested to learn other ways and other tools that you can combine with the Enneagram and anything that helps us to get in touch with our 3 centers of intelligence. So I appreciate this, Isabelle, and I may have to refresh my memory of what I learned about Myers-Briggs, but I'm interested in learning more about this model, the Linda Barron's model. It helps you to use it much more effectively. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I find, using different tools in combination, because there is, one tool cannot solve all, and you finding what each tool is best at and knowing which tool to use in which context, I find very powerful to do. So I see in the chat, Beth, I love the growth path of the 3s. Yeah, and the growth path of all the other Enneagram type. Yeah, it's something I love seeing people growing that way. It's just beautiful to behold.
Isabelle?
Yes.
May
but
I
Mary-
ask you, I've retired now and my dad has passed away, so I'm not having to take care of anyone. And I'm thinking, where do I go from here? The world is my oyster. And I have lots of ideas, but I'm thinking, how can the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram guide me? So I know my types in both, and I've known them for many years, but I don't understand each of them well enough to really, I'm sure I could learn a lot more than I know.
Yes. So how they can guide you.
Yeah. So which do you think would be, I don't know, I was going to say, give me an easy answer, which is more helpful in regard to helping make fun decisions about your future?
It depends a little bit about your situation. And often they need all the tools as well that I didn't talk about to help you clarify also your purpose and your vision. What I would say is, what I find is that the Myers-Briggs approach that I gave at the beginning is really going to help you clarify where do you thrive and what are the needs that you need to have in whatever thing you're going to do. And even more than the Enneagram in some ways. So I would recommend doing that probably to get some really good pieces about where do you thrive, because for example, my client, we find out, oh, she's an innovator. So she needs innovation to thrive.
Yeah.
And after that, so that's going to help you do where do you thrive, especially with your type. And then adding to that, what are some of your passions? Because for her, she needs innovating, but in which field is she gonna innovate? And it's true, she loves design and she loves art. So we're gonna combine, okay, innovation and design together. But for you, it would be, okay, what are the things that you are passionate about? What are the things that light you up? So to combine this with the Myers-Briggs to get what is the intersection of it would be my guess.
Great.
And they are, does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, great. So let's see.
There's a question from Janine in the, she's asking about a book that shows correspondences between Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram.
Yes, and there are several books about that. I know I have one that shows the correspondence. So let's see, because I have a lot of ideas and thoughts about that, but I want to do a quick response. I could talk about that for hours probably. First of all, it's not an easy correspondence. It's not like, oh, this Enneagram corresponds to that Myers-Briggs, or this Enneagram to that, this Myers-Briggs. It's not easy. It's a little messy in some ways. And also you have to, since sometimes there is mistyping about the Myers-Briggs that I see a lot, even people who are trained in Myers-Briggs, when they don't use it the way I use it, they can mistype. So you have to be mindful of that. That may kind of give false information. So, but there are things that I've noticed for my clients, you know, sometimes it's easy. Sometimes, for example, to give you one that is relatively easy is a lot of people who are improvisers, and you see improvisers, I told you, there is a freedom to act now. There is often, not always though, I just want to, but there is often a correlation between improviser and type 7. Because type 7 is a lot about freedom. And there is a lot, so this is one of the easiest one that I see. I wish all of them were like that, but it's not. But often, again, I don't want to, but there is a lot correlation. Type 7 and being an improviser often fall into. And there is a few others like that. I mean, for example, type 4, maybe in a type 4, there is a correlation between type 4 and often a couple of types. You know, like that, the INFJ, but I've also see the ISFP. You know, there is a little thing like that sometimes. So there is, but it's not, but they are the type 3, for example. Type 3, my client, I've seen them all over the map. I've seen the type 3, one is ENTP, like this client. One was, what I've seen, I've seen ESTP, I've seen, so sometimes there is like, it's all over the map. So it's just, yeah. Some books have a good, there is a book where I see there is some interesting correlation, but it's, yeah, is that answering a little the question that you ask or helping?
She's shaking her head, yes.
Okay, okay, yes, yeah.
And Bruce has added a link in the chat too, specifically for Rosemary, but he said it shows the Myers-Briggs types in detail, including the values, strategies, modes. So they might note that, everybody.
Yeah, you can note that as well. So yeah, that's a great way to look at it. So let me just to finish up, wrapping up.
Thank you, Bruce. That sounds really good.
Yeah, just to recap, so using both in combination, and what can also help us address different type of blind spots. So I find that Myers-Briggs can help us. We have blind spot around our strengths and our gifts. And Myers-Briggs, the way I use it, again, can really help us eliminate that. Even if the Enneagram can also help that as well. So it's just, you know, there is a bit of both. But and the Enneagram being so good at helping us see the blind spot or unconscious repeated patterns that we have. And both of them help us connect with our true essence, to how can we be in our true essence and being the most fulfilled expression of ourselves, in our glory and our beauty. And it's what I love about using both in combination. And finally, and this may answer also one of your questions, Rosemary, is that for those of you who are interested in diving a little deeper and you are wondering, oh, how can that help me in my own journey to my purpose? And what tool specifically would help me with where I'm at? So I'm offering a 25-minute Zoom call, one-on-one with me. And it's complimentary, so it's free, to help you clarify what is your personalized roadmap to your purpose with Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram. Where we'll clarify a bit more where you are, what is your vision for what's next, and your purpose. And when I say your purpose, it can take so many things, you know, how to be more fulfilled, how to be more lit up, you know, whether it's work, whether it's retirement, whether it's your life. And then looking at what exactly are the blind spot or the thing that's stopping you from doing that, or what you need to look at. And then clarifying what is the most powerful action or things to look at to help you. And get your customized roadmap using Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram and other tools that I didn't share today. There is a lot of other tools. So if you are interested in this, you can book your call at the link on the slide. I'm going to share it. So let me share it in the chat so that you can easily click on it. So I have it here. So I'm gonna share it now. So you can click on the link and book. I have some time this week and next week, and book a time to chat with me. I'll be more than happy to dive deeper with you about that, or if you have any specific questions. Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Let me see if I want. Yeah, in case you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm gonna share again my LinkedIn profile, my email address. If you want to connect more, I'm happy to continue the conversation. So thank you so much for that. And if you have any more questions, but I know we are getting, I hope with the time we went a little bit, I don't know if we went over, Nancy, but I hope it's good.
It was on a roll, and we're very flexible in this group, you know, so we didn't get to go around the room, and we don't have time to do that, but I hope you all felt connected in the breakout. And Isabelle, thank you for all this fabulous information and all your generous offers. And I think I'll stop the recording.
Yes. Yeah, we can stop the